Level 1, the girl from Magdala. You are 8 years old. The smell of fish is in everything. It is in your tunic, in the wood of the doorframe, in the wind that comes off the water before the sun clears the eastern hills. You live in Magdala, a trading town on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee, and the whole town breathes with the lake. Fishermen drag nets before dawn. Salting workers stack the catch in long rows outside the drying sheds. Merchants from Rome send buyers here because the salted fish of Magdala is traded across the empire. Your family eats well enough. You watch the scribes write. You listen when the rabbi reads the Torah on the Sabbath, and you memorize the words without being asked. The Psalms stay in your chest like flat stones pressed smooth by water, permanent. You do not know it yet, but you will carry those words for the rest of your life. In your darkest years, they will be the only light you can find. Level 2, the darkness arrives. You are 19 years old. It does not happen all at once. That is the cruelest part. It begins like a sound at the edge of sleep, a voice that is not quite a voice, a feeling that the room you are standing in is not the room you are standing in. You tell yourself it is grief because your mother died the previous winter, but it is not grief. The episodes come more frequently. There are hours you cannot account for. You wake on the floor with no memory of falling. You speak words that do not belong to you. The town has a word for what is happening to you. The word is possession, and once that word attaches to your name, everything changes. People stop touching you. Women who used to share bread at the market cross to the other side of the street. You understand. You would do the same. Whatever is living inside you has multiplied. 7. The number 7 carries sacred weight in your tradition, and somehow that makes it worse. You stop going to the synagogue. You stop going outside. You brace for each episode the way you brace for a wave. Level 3, the years that are gone. You are 26 years old. 7 years have passed the way water passes through sand, leaving no shape. The herb remedies have failed. The prayers have failed. The man who came from Capernaum with oil and incantations held the darkness back for 3 days, and then it returned. You are not violent, people assume, but you are not dangerous. You are simply not fully present in your own body. The absences grow longer, and the silences around you grow heavier, and there are days when you feel that your soul has come slightly loose from its moorings and cannot find its way back. Your family does not abandon you, they carry you, but you are tired of being carried. You pray the prayer of someone who has already lost everything that matters. You do not pray for a husband or for prosperity. You pray to be quiet inside. You pray to be still. Level 4, the rabbi from Nazareth. You are 30 years old. You hear about him in fragments from the edges of conversations you are not quite part of. A teacher moving through the villages along the lake. He cast out a spirit in the synagogue at Capernaum, and the people watching could not explain what they had seen. You are not someone who chases rumors. 7 years of suffering have made you careful. Hope, you have learned, is expensive. And yet those words will not leave you alone. The day you go to find him, you walk alone, north along the shoreline, and the wind is sharp off the water, and the reeds are dry and clicking. You find him near a hillside outside Magdala, surrounded by perhaps 40 people. You stay at the edge of the crowd and watch. He speaks, and his voice carries without effort, the way water carries sound across a flat lake. He is talking about the kingdom of God, and the words are familiar, words you memorized as a child, and yet in his mouth they sound new, the way bread smells new when it is still hot. And then he sees you. Not through you, not past you. He sees you the way no one has seen you in years. Directly. without the small flinch of fear that everyone else brings when they look at your face. He speaks, and something leaves you. There is a sound, perhaps only inside yourself, and then a silence where the darkness used to live. Enormous and clean and unbearable in the best way possible, the way morning is unbearable when you have been in a dark room for a long time. You kneel in the dirt outside Magdala, and you cannot stop shaking, and you do not care who sees. Level 5, the road. You are 31 years old. You follow him? Not as a metaphor, literally on the road, with sandals wrong for long distances, and a travelling pack and a group of other women who have their own reasons for walking. Joanna is there, the wife of Chusa, who manages Herod's household, which means she is risking something real. Susanna is there, others whose names the later records will not preserve. You pool your resources. Luke's account will record it plainly. These women supported Jesus and the 12 disciples out of their own means. You buy the food, you arrange the sleeping, you make sure the work of teaching can continue because someone is handling what the teaching cannot stop to handle. You listen to everything. You hear the parables and the arguments with the Pharisees and the quiet conversations at the edge of the evening fire. You watch him heal. You watch him weep. You watch him sleep in the back of a fishing boat while a storm tries to break the world apart, and then watch him stand up and tell the storm to stop, and watch the storm stop. Level 6, the hill. You are 33 years old. The mood shifts as you move south. The stakes are larger. The Passover crowd makes everything louder and more dangerous. You are not in the garden the night they arrest him, but you hear the news before dawn, carried mouth to mouth through the narrow streets. And you do not run. You find the other women and you make your way to the execution site outside the city walls, because if this is the last thing, you will not let him go through it without someone who loves him watching. His name is Golgotha, the place of the skull. Matthew's Gospel will record your name specifically. Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James and Joses. Luke says the women who had followed him from Galilee stood at a distance watching. You are at a distance because they will not let you closer. But your eyes do not leave him. 6 hours, from the 3rd hour of the morning to the 9th hour of the afternoon. The sky does something strange in the middle of the afternoon. It darkens, not the way clouds darken the sky, but in a way that feels like the light itself has chosen to leave. For 3 hours the land holds its breath. When it is finished, you are still there. The disciples are scattered. You are still there. Level 7, the garden tomb. You are 33 years old, and it is Friday evening. There is not much time before the Sabbath begins, and all work must stop. Joseph of Arimathea has claimed the body and has a new tomb nearby, cut from rock in a garden close to the execution site. You watch where they place him. You watch them roll the stone. You are memorizing the location the way you memorized the Psalms as a child. You have not finished. You will come back. The Sabbath is the longest day of your life. You sit with the other women, and you speak very little. The silence is not the clean silence of healing. It is the silence of a story that has ended in the wrong place. You prepare the spices before first light. Level 8, the first day. You are 33 years old, and it is Sunday morning. You leave before the sun is fully up. You are thinking about the stone as you walk. It is very large, and you're not sure how the women alone will move it. This is the practical thought you are holding when you come around the garden path and see the entrance of the tomb open in front of you. The stone is already moved. You go closer. The linen cloths are there, arranged neatly where the body should be. But the body is not there. You run. You find Peter and John and you say the exact words that John's Gospel will preserve 2,000 years later. They have taken the Lord out of the tomb and we do not know where they have put him. Peter and John come back and go inside and see and leave again. And you stay. You have always been the one who stays. You bend down and look inside again. Two figures are seated, one at the head and one at the feet of where the body had been. They ask why you are weeping. You say, "They have taken my Lord, and I do not know where they have put him." You turn around, level 9, the name. You are 33 years old. There is a man standing in the garden behind you. You think he is the gardener. Your eyes are full of tears, and your mind is running through every explanation, and none of them make sense. He asks why you are weeping. He asks who you are looking for. You say, "If you have carried him somewhere, tell me where and I will get him." And he says your name, just your name. One word, Mary.
And you know him, not through reasoning, not through comparison, in the way that certain true things are known, all at once before the mind has time to argue. You say, "Rabboni, teacher."
He tells you not to hold on to him. He tells you to go and tell the others. And you go. You walk back into the city and you stand in the doorway of the upper room and you say the thing that no human being has ever had occasion to say before, the words that will travel across 2,000 years and still not finish traveling. I have seen the Lord.
You are the first, before Peter, before John, before any of the 11. A woman from a fishing town on the western shore of a lake in Galilee, once possessed, once invisible, once the person others crossed the street to avoid, is the first human being in history to carry the news of the resurrection. You carry it the way you carried everything else, with your whole self, holding nothing back. And now you are history.